Okay. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The May 23rd Budget Committee meeting. Excuse me. Start off with the roll call. Oh, you know what? Before we do this, I think we have to take a vote on allowing Chris to join us remote. So could I get a motion on that, please?
I motion. I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
you also have to ask if it was not practical for him to attend this evening, and if there's anybody in the room with him.
Okay.
Those are the two other questions you have to ask.
Did you catch that, Chris?
Okay, I am not there because I've got a bit of a head cold. I've tested negative, but in all due respect from my colleagues, I've asked about attending in this matter.
Okay, and are you alone?
Can you hear me?
Yes, are you alone?
Okay, thank you.
I don't think you can hear us.
Try that again. He looks like he's on the abandoned island, so.
Are you alone?
I have my headset on. My wife is in the other room, but I have my headset on, so I hear everything confidentially.
Okay, all right. So with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So Chris Wolf will be remote. Ned Carpenter?
Yes, here.
Richard Lesavoy?
Here.
Brian Hickey?
Here.
Roger Caddy?
Here.
Danielle Honan?
Here.
Amy Tilton from the school board did let me know that she would not be here this evening. Brian, I didn't get you. Brian Ward, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Okay. Next on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, next up, I will open up public comment at 6:33. Seeing no public comment, I will close public comment at 6:34. And, okay, in regards to our agenda, Mr. Mulaski will not be able to attend this evening. He's had an accident, and so last minute, I don't know, Steve, do you have anything that you could answer in regards to those departments, or no?
Not really.
Not really, okay.
But I do, what I tried to fill it up with was more the orientation materials for, it's not just right to know, it's also
Okay.
our role in government, so maybe that's a good way to
Okay,
extend the time.
okay, and hopefully Mr. Mulaski can make it in a couple of months.
Hope so.
Okay, so with that, I'll turn it over to Town Manager Steve Fournier.
Thank you, and welcome to the new members who I don't know yet. But this is just a quick overview of where we are for the fiscal year 22, which is the end of April. We should be about 83% full through the operating budget. Currently, for general fund in total, the expenditure percentage is 79%, which is about the same as we were last year. Total operating budget expenditures is 80%, which is 8 versus 81% last year. We are well within where we thought we'd be this year. We are seeing some impacts from what everybody else is seeing, inflation in higher markets. Petroleum, we're seeing increases in our fuel costs, much like everybody else is, heat and gasoline. And the other thing we're seeing a lot increase in our expenditures is actually our telephone lines. The company that provides our service indicated they're going from $38 to $55 per line in the community, and we will be going out to bid to see whether the services are available out there. But we're still overall under budget for the year. Revenues, remains strong. We've collected $33,986,671 versus $31,131,557 for the same period last year, which is an increase of about $2.8 million. Largely due to the tax revenue increase of $1,046,694 the previous year. We also received an increase of $103,173 from an increase in the room and meals tax distribution from the state. And additionally, we did use our $598,373 in fund balance, which we anticipated. We are seeing an increase in building permits this year, which is good. It's one of the two things that we look at. I look at to try to get a sense where we are for the economy. Building permits are still are above budget, what we anticipated. On the flip side, though, is motor vehicle registrations remain flat or stagnant. Reason for that is what everybody else is going through. You can't find a car because you can't buy a chip. So we're not getting the new cars being registered at this point in time. It's not too far off where we anticipated, but just slightly. It's just a sign of the economy. Just some updates on we did receive $479,269 from COVID-19 from ARPA. Of that, right now, $14,450 have been spent on personal protection equipment, virus spread mitigation efforts, cybersecurity upgrades, and pandemic-driven changes, so we can continue operating the government during the pandemic. And then a majority of the remaining is going to be for stormwater management projects as well as additional cybersecurity. That is, we're seeing as the next big hit against municipalities across the state. For those of you who didn't hear, there was the Peterborough case last year in which $2 million was scammed out of the town from a false entity pretending to be the school district, requesting their payment from the town. So we are also going to be looking at our security matters. So that is where we are budget-wise this year. Everything's turned out so far so good. Other projects, New Road, we've started the New Road project to replace water lines and address stormwater issues. In addition, we have hired a new community development director. We're going to be changing that department some. So it's no longer a town planner, it's now a community development director who will oversee the new code enforcement zoning administrator, which will be a full-time position. And as soon as they are hired, we tried hiring that position earlier in the year. Wasn't as successful as we hoped. So we waited till the new community development director came on. His name is Bart McDonough. We got him from the town of Kittery, where he served as the deputy community development director there. And we should have the code enforcement position filled within a few weeks, hopefully. We're conducting interviews for that on Wednesday. We are going to be advertising we are advertising currently for the town engineer position that was approved in the fiscal year 23 budget, so we can hopefully have them on board sometime this summer to begin assisting us with projects. Other than that, we are issuing a request for proposal from firms. One of the things the CIP committee requested of the town is to look at our facilities. As many as you know, we put off a lot of maintenance on our own facilities and large projects because of the fact we want to make sure the school could get theirs first. One of the big issues is this building itself. Is how, if we, the CIP committee asked if we would look at building a new facility for town hall. I think we'd probably be more realistic to renovate and maybe put additions onto this one. It's a unique building due to the fact that we only own the footprint of this building. The parking lot is actually owned by the Archdiocese of Manchester, and we have a sharing agreement with that. We do own the parking lot in the back, and so we'd have to look at that. In addition, we do have a condo owner in the building where the school department owns their portion of their floor. So we just have to, but we also want to study, we do have some other buildings, the former water treatment facility on Packers Falls Road. Since we upgraded the water and wastewater plant, that's no longer needed. We have the Beach Street Extension Community Center, which is used for some programming, as well as, we just want to see where we are and what we need to do to make sure we're okay for the future. And that is what I have for projects and budget right now. Do we want to questions on that right now, or?
You mentioned RFP.
Yeah.
What's the RFP for?
Oh, sorry, the request for proposals, the one for the building is the facility study.
You're putting it out to,
Yep.
to bid so that they can make
Right, but the
projections?
firms that come in and say, it'll cost us X amount of money to study your facilities
Got
for
it.
you.
Okay.
I have a question, if you might
Oh,
ask. So, I was looking at the gas and diesel analysis and so forth for obviously the police and other departments. And, you know, what we obviously don't reference here is the number of gallons that we've burned in years prior and the number of gallons that we're burning now. And obviously, if we knew what the gallon consumption was, then we could calculate, you know, what the impact is to the budget, you know, as the price finds a new level. So that would have been an interesting thing to have. In the past, we probably haven't had to think about that. But we do need to think about what our consumption rates are and then what that multiplies out to in terms of impact on future budget if those prices remain the same.
Well, my question was a little bit similar in that I'm sure we didn't budget energy costs at this level. So this is a little bit of kind of upcoming budget question. So we have kind of a $30-some thousand impact in just probably a couple few months, right? Because it went up fast. So if we roll that out forward, I would think that's a pretty decent number, which we probably didn't budget for, right?
that's correct.
And so I'm just curious how you think that's going to impact us, or there's
Well,
not much we can do about it.
There's not much we can do. That
Right.
will be, I mean, knock on wood, we don't have any other unanticipated expenses out there. Usually we could we'll try to find it in the current operating budget. If not, we'll have to pull back on some projects that we're doing. I mean, we're already seeing that with our road paving. Asphalt, oil is one of the biggest things, so we won't be paving as many roads as we anticipated this year. In addition, the costs of the projects that we're receiving bids for, new road, are coming in much tighter and higher than we expected when we went out to, you know, the initial planning stages 3-4 years ago.
Steve, in regards to diesel and gasoline, can you explain how the town purchases their diesel and gasoline? And also, are the municipalities responsible for taxation on those items? In other words, are you paying the same?
We do not.
You do not
We
pay
do
the
not pay the
tax?
same rate.
Okay.
Right, we're not taxed.
Okay.
But we go through a process every, whatever it is, like 3 years. We're actually due, for electricity, for example, is coming up. We're in December. So we're looking at all of that right now. The fuel purchasing we've done through a company called Hafner's, and because we keep getting the best price from them. And they're basing that, if I remember correctly, on I think it's the rack price, the Irving rack price, wherever they're doing the purchasing. And so then it's a multiple of that, depending on where the market is at that point in time. So it doesn't fix your cost forever. You're on kind of a rolling basis depending on what the market's doing.
For those
It
that
doesn't
are-
lock us in at a specific spot price, essentially.
For those not aware, we have our own pumps. So it's not like we're going to Irving and filling the trucks there. We have our own, so we get a different price through this process. And right, we don't pay the taxes that you would pay at the regular pump. So, but it's still, the cost is still higher, just not that portion.
Right.
Irving is the supplier?
It depends.
No, it's Hafner's is the company that we're purchasing
Yeah.
through, for diesel and gas.
But Irving is the major intake per.
Index,
Yeah.
One other question. So on the ARPA funds, two things. One, do you think that this money offsets any operating expenses? And secondly, is this like the end of that kind of funds, or are we going to see anything in the next fiscal year?
I don't believe we're going to see any more opera funds coming in.
Well, we
You gotta stand up to the mic.
Oh, sorry. You're right. So this, I only reported on what happened in the current year. So we got the first tranche of 2 tranches of ARPA funding. So this is, I was talking about what we've done with the current year and what's anticipated to be spent for the remainder of that fund. So we already know that we're allocating a good portion of it to stormwater projects. So that's, and then we're looking at one other cybersecurity related thing for the the water treatment facility. And in that case, we're considering what's called dark fiber, so that we have a singular owned network, essentially, that's fiber optic from our main hub for IT to that facility.
And I think what you're asking is, are we getting more money from ARPA? We're anticipating a little under $1 million total. Altogether. So we got our first half, and we'll receive a second half later.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the other part of my question was, none of those things we're spending that money on were budgeted
No.
operating expenses.
And we cannot, in some of the ARPA rules, that we cannot use ARPA funds to offset operating. So it
It's
can't,
supposed to
like,
be for COVID related or other things
Or
that they're
to
hoping to
help.
encourage.
to help encourage the economy.
So they're restricted in that.
Very much, yeah.
Correct.
Thanks.
To be honest, with a lot of municipalities, when they got their funds right away, they went out and spent it. Because of the rules at the time, it was like, oh, you can either backfill what you had or try to do some new projects. It was so quick that I said, you know what, hold off on spending. You know, we're not in danger right now. We're not, you know, financially we're fine. That the rules are going to change, and they are, and that's why we were, you know, being a little bit more hesitant on spending that. One of the big things that people are using it for is lack of revenue. For example, if you had a parking meter system or a parking garage in your community, and during the pandemic, nobody was going out, so you lost a lot of revenue there. You could offset it with the money you were getting from ARPA. And that's the kind of programs that you could use it for during that, for lack of revenue. Okay? So now, I'm going to go over just a quick, you know, I've done this with the council, I did it with the school board, and thought it would be good for the budget committee. Just a quick overview of our form of government in Newmarket, because it's unique compared to what many people may be used to around the area. So the first thing I want to do is, I'll just give you the basics. There's 4 basic types of local government in New Hampshire. First is what they call the strong mayor and board of aldermen. People elect the CEO to run the city, which is the mayor. They then elect a representative body to set policy for the city, which is called the board of aldermen. In New Hampshire, there's only 2 cities with this form of government. They're Manchester and Nashua. So the 2 largest communities in the state have this form of government. The next is what they call the council-manager form of government. Voters elect a legislative body for the city or town, which is called the city or town council. The head of the council serves as a figurehead for the community and chairs the council, which could be called a mayor or a council chair. The council then hires a professional CEO to run the community, which is a city or town manager. There are 11 cities in this state and 7 towns that have this form of government. The cities around here are Portsmouth, Dover, Rochester, and Somersworth. And the towns that have this form of government are Durham and Newmarket. The next is what you refer to as a select board SB2 form of government. This is when the voters elect the select board to serve as a governing body. They may appoint a town manager or administrator to be the chief executive officer or administrative officer, but they don't have to. Town meeting serves as a legislative body. In deliberative session, people attend to debate and amend articles, and then people then vote on town meeting day to approve the articles. There are currently 68 towns in the state that have this. Around here is Exeter, Hampton, Rye, and Barrington. Newmarket's unique because our charter still has a budgetary-only town meeting. I'll get into that a little bit more when we get into roles and duties, but we still have one vestige of that left, including the Municipal Budget Committee. And finally, there's the Select Board traditional town meeting. This is where voters elect the Select Board to serve as the governing body. They also may appoint a town manager or administrator, but they don't have to. The town meeting serves as a legislative body, and they meet annually to approve warrant articles and the annual budgets. This is most the towns of the state. This is the picturesque Norman Rockwell, somebody standing up in the hall debating in a town meeting form that everybody considers the New England form. So, what's the difference with us? So, to consider Newmarket, think of it as a corporation. That the town council serves as a legislative body and governing body of the town. So the residents are the shareholders. They elect a board of directors, which is the town council, who in return hire a chief executive officer, which is the town manager. The one thing, as I said, that we have a vestige from the old town meeting SB2 is we still have a budgetary town meeting. Durham does not have that any longer. Derry doesn't have that any longer. I don't believe Bedford has it any longer. That our budget still goes before the voters and goes to municipal budget committee like the old town meeting form. One of the things that we get a lot and people ask us is, well, I want to make a petition warrant article for the ballot. The only thing the people on the town side vote on are bonds and budgets. Everything else is voted upon by the legislative body, which is the town council. So zoning amendments, laws, those are kind of items, town council. If it's not raising funds or borrowing funds, I mean, those are the only two things that go on the ballot. That's why, if you notice lately, the town ballot's really small. It's like one or two questions versus a number of the school still operates under the traditional SB2 form. Just things that you need to know: town councils are not select boards. Councils have some authority of select boards. Town manager has some of the authority of the select boards. The town charter says, and state law says, council has all the powers of city councils except to adopt the budget, as I just said. And state law says the council has all the powers of selectmen, city councils, and aldermen. And all actions and laws of a city apply to the town council. So what's that mean? Newmarket's closer in government to Dover and Portsmouth than it is to Exeter and Hampton. So you're going to hear things, this happens all the time. You may hear something going on in Exeter, and I'll say, well, we don't do it that way because we have a charter. For those who don't know, the charter of the community is like our constitution. It outlines how our government's set up, and it's adopted. We adopted our charter in 1991, which is pretty new for municipalities. Most of them adopted them in the 1800s or early 1900s. So we're still growing. So what's the role of the town manager? So one thing is the town council cannot get involved in the day-to-day operations of the town. Town council has to appoint a chief executive officer under RSA 49D:2, and the town manager has all authority of the city manager according to the town charter and state law, including appoints with town council approval all department heads, disciplines employees, including termination. That does not go before the town council. Proposes the budget and CIP to the town council, and there's a full list in the town charter. So the way to look at it is this: council makes policy, the town manager and staff carry out the policies. So again, town council, they adopt all laws of the town. The town council has budgetary control. So if I were to, if the fire department needed funds and was overexpending, if we need to transfer funds from another department, town council would have to approve that. We just can't do that. The municipal budget committee and town meeting only have bottom line approval of the budget. You can amend the budget, you can make recommendations, but during the year, it's the council who determines where the money goes. The town manager has financial responsibility. The town manager approves any manifest for payment. So at least once or twice a week, I sign a large document of all the checks that are going out of town hall for pay bills or payroll, in addition with the town treasurer. The town manager sets the pay for employees. They establish a purchasing code, and the town manager appoints the town treasurer. A lot of communities, the town treasurer is elected. The charter was amended here to appoint the town treasurer a number of years ago. So what's the role of the municipal budget committee? With regards to the town, the budget committee's authority is set out by charter, not just state law. That's why we have the Constitution. Our Constitution is pretty vague when it comes to the municipal budget committee. So we have to punt state law with a lot of it. The purpose of the Budget Committee is to assist the voters, which is the legislative body, in the spending of public funds. What that means, they recommend and amend the annual budget. They have recommendations on borrowing ballot questions. So when we have a bond issue, we ask the Budget Committee to review it, and they just say, yes, we recommend passage, or no, we do not recommend passage. The Budget Committee cannot put their own questions on the ballot. The town council has that control. And they also review not controlled expenditures. One thing we need to realize is the Budget Committee is not an audit committee, what you would think of in a corporation. It's not there to go over the fiscal fiscal policies of the municipality. It's there to oversee that monies are being expended in what they thought were the right ways, and get updates, not for the current fiscal year, but how the money needs to be appropriated in the next fiscal year. It's sort of to give you a preview of where we are during this year, much like we just did, saying oil prices are going higher. We probably need to look at that in the next year's budget. If we had a reduction in something else, we'd say, oh, look, this is something we could look at in next year's budget. That's the role of the Municipal Budget Committee during the year.
Steve, is there an audit committee?
No, there is not. There's an independent auditor who provides the audit to the town council and myself.
And does the town council perform the function then of an audit committee?
Yeah, I would say yes. They review the audit and any management any recommendations from the auditors.
Thank you.
And finally, the manager, with the approval of the council, as I mentioned earlier, may transfer funds. Just some of the things, and this is just general for staff, interactions with staff and boards. Just remember, don't deal with staff except for basic inquiry and praise. All local government matters should be funneled through the town manager. So if you need something, if the committee needs something, remember to go through me, and then I'll ask the department heads to do it, because you never know what's on the department head's plate at that time, and it may be an easier way to get the information to you. And they may answer questions, but I will tell you, as soon as they hear from an elected official, the next phone call is to me to let me know. And one of the reasons is we don't like playing gotcha. That means we prefer getting questions before we come to a meeting. We don't want half the board or committee to have the information and the other half not. It's not fair. It's not fair, and it's not good government. So what I do is, if there's two ways we do it. One, I always deal with the chair of the committee, and if a committee member emails me individually, the next CC'd on it would be the chair, so they know what's going on. In addition, if we need to provide information, everybody gets it. So nobody is blindsided, or everybody's on the same page. We don't like having people not have all the information. And again, this is the other thing goes, just avoid giving the manager and staff mixed signals. You know, just because it's difficult enough when you have one boss. It's very difficult in this situation when you have a committee of individuals who we serve at a majority of the committee. So if it's, if half the committee says one thing, but half the committee plus one says the other, we follow the role of the half plus one. And it's very difficult for those on the losing side to understand that sometimes, that's the way we go, and that's what we're going to be doing. So this is just an organizational chart where we currently are and how this goes. So as you can see, up top is the town council. Town council has one employee, and that's the town manager. That's me. Then I have the department heads. So first, who you just met earlier, is Bill Tappan, who's the Director of Finance and Administration. We have Greg Jordan, who's Chief of Police. Rick Molaski, who wears two hats. He's the Director of Public Works full-time and a part-time fire chief in the community. Sean Gregg is the Director of Environmental Services. Bart McDonough is the new Director of Community Development. And Amy Gigande is Director of Recreation. We did eliminate in fiscal year 23 the Director of Facilities and Grounds, and that's going to be replaced by the town engineer on our side. So now these other boards out here is Terry Littlefield is the town clerk tax collector. She is an independently elected, the only full-time elected official in the town. So she oversees her department And when I say this, she can operate the department how she wants. She works closely and very well, probably one of the best town clerks I've ever worked with in my municipal career, with the town. Always wants to be involved in everything and get the same information. And on the other side is the library. So library is actually overseen by a board of library trustees, which is appointed by the town council, and they hire the library director. The council and the budget committee provide them with a lump sum annually, but they have the control over that operating budget like the town council does over the town operating budget. Council does not get into the day-to-day operations of the library. That's an old colonial law in New Hampshire because they didn't want to have some of the elected officials determining what books and what kind of items would be in the library. And so that's why they made it much more independent. So the big law that you guys will probably have to deal with is what we refer to as the right to know law, which is public records law. For example, at the beginning of this meeting, one of the new right to know laws within the last 15 years was able to participate in meetings remotely. You had a much greater ability to do so during the pandemic because of emergency orders. All that has gone away. So the only way to participate remotely is one, you need to have a quorum of the body present in the community, like here, and the individuals have to have, it was not practically reasonable for them to attend, and they have to be alone in the room. One of the things that you practically reasonable is not saying, I live in Florida 3 months of the year. Or it's not, many of the state boards are running into it are, well, I don't want to drive to Concord every time there's a meeting and I live in Berlin. That doesn't count. You have to still drive to Concord. You can't call in for each meeting. So there's still, the technology has upgraded substantially since the pandemic, but also, the laws have not. The laws still require us to be in person so that people can see us and operate. And the other one was what the right to know law. And that is, as I mentioned, the public records. One of the biggest things that we run into is whether or not you're having a meeting or not. Or you're having a meeting. So this is a quick flow chart to determine this. So first, has a quorum of the public body been convened? So in this situation, you guys are all here? Yes, it has. So this is a public meeting. And minutes have to be taken. The public has to be allowed in. Our rules are it should be televised. It doesn't have to be. One thing you also have to realize is that public meetings are not public forums. The public does not have the right to speak at a public meeting. They have the right to attend a public meeting. So that's one of the big, it's very hard to understand that you don't have to have comments by visitors. And if you do, the rules should state it only should be on agenda topics and it should be time limited. That way it's not going on and for a certain, and also on the agenda. So back to this, say if the quorum of the body is convened, and then it goes down to, is it to discuss issues that they have advisory power control of, then yes, it's a meeting. So that's really simple. I actually put one in there twice on accident. And then were decisions nevertheless made on matter? If not, if they have something you guys met together and it's nothing to do with what you have authority over, so the budget, but it says no, but you made decisions on matters. Like, well, we're going to have we're going to request the fire chief to come in at the next meeting. Then it's a meeting. So basically, if a quorum of this group gets together, that's a meeting. Where it gets into situations are, and this is the big one, especially today with email and text and Facebook messages and Instagram or anything you can think of in social media, is that are there sequential communications involved in a quorum of the body? Yes. Is it discussing or acting on issues that it has advisory power or control of? Yes. That's an illegal meeting. So what does that mean? The chair sends out an email to the budget committee. Or a budget committee member sends out something questioning something in the budget. all of a sudden the budget committee starts emailing back and forth with answers and more questions. That's an illegal meeting. When you hit reply all, 99% of the time, if you're replying, unless it's setting up the date of a meeting, that's an illegal meeting. You also don't want to try to circumvent it by saying, well, the chair is going to email 2 people, the vice chair is going to email 2 people, this person's going to email 2 people the same question. So it's never a quorum, but you're still getting the same thing at the end. That's an illegal meeting. If you go on to what's going on in Newmarket Facebook page, and the budget committee starts having a debate in the comments section, that's an illegal meeting. You cannot be discussing town business on social media like that, because it's a sequential communications, and you're going around a public meeting where the debate should be happening. That's the new one. It actually started back when newspapers were allowing comments on articles on the bottom. That just melded into doing it on social media. Twitter, you can't have fights over Twitter. So that's just one of the big things. Public records, it's really the minutes of this meeting. Minutes should be a summary of the meeting and not a verbatim record. Minutes are done pretty well. And we try to give as much information to the budget committee as possible. I mean, 99.9% of what we have is public. Pretty much what's not is legal cases and personnel records or security. That's the new one. And if you want to see anything else, we'll provide you with that information if it's reasonable and the committee as a whole is requesting it. Anything? I know it's a kind of strange situation, and to explain what the budget committee does in the grand scheme of things. And what you do with us is is different than what you do with the school, because the school is still a SB2 town, because it's a independent school district, so they still operate under state law versus having a charter.
Oh,
Sure.
just one question, Steve. Just a clarification. So the audit, I guess we got to see a copy of the audit with the observations, but there were recommendations. There was more information that we didn't get. What's the rationale for us not being able to see that?
It could have involved personnel matters.
Okay.
So if it was discussing individuals or individual positions not performing, that is not public. If you and we're in a situation where the problem is most departments or positions are filled by an individual, not by a staff of individuals. Say in the other situation, if we had an AP department with 20 people in it, you'd probably see more information. But when you have an AP individual, you can figure out if there was, and I'm just saying AP is just the picking summit. That doesn't mean it was in there. That's probably the reason why. Am I missing anything else?
No, also, I have typically, whenever that management letter comes through, it's addressed to the council and the town manager, and so that's who I provide it to. And when the audit itself, I provided a text of that to you guys. So they're separate. And I have not typically provided that letter to, because it has other things in it too, like the end of year adjustments that we made. And in this case, it was like quite a list. So it's not something that the budget committee would really have interest in.
Could we redact personnel information and give it to you? Yes, that's no problem if that's something the committee wishes.
Thanks.
Yep.
Steve, quick question on a quorum. If we were a full board, would be 11 people, which would be 6 as a quorum. But we're currently 9, so does that move it down to 5?
It does.
Okay, so it's based on how many are actually sitting on the board at a given moment.
Exactly. It actually goes, and it breaks down further. So if you were down to 3, those 3 start appointing members. Then once you get another one, then you have to get a majority of 4. Then you have to get a majority of 5 to appoint the next individual. So,
Okay,
yes.
thanks. Any other questions?
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve,
Yeah.
just for, now, we will be meeting with you again, hopefully in
August.
August.
Correct.
And if Rick is available,
Bring him in.
bring him in. If not, could we possibly get Chief Jordan in?
Absolutely.
That way they will have someone to ask some questions from their department and stuff.
And probably at that time, I'll give a little preview of what the fiscal year 24 budget, because that's when we start writing it. So, yeah, you'll get it in November, but we start it in the summer. Great.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, next we have some meeting minutes to approve. So I'll look for a motion on the March 28th meeting minutes.
I move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or changes to be made? Okay. Danielle, you won't be able to vote on these because you weren't a member of the board at that time. So, all those in favor of accepting them, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so it's 2, 4, 6. I didn't catch
Chris,
Chris. Did
I abstained because I wasn't.
still
at the
there?
meeting.
Chris is still there?
I am. I abstained because I was not in the meeting. I
Okay,
was
thank you.
excused from that
So
meeting.
it's Danielle and Chris abstaining. Okay, next set of meeting minutes are from the April 11th meeting.
I move approval of the April 11 meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
Okay. And Brian was excused from this one, so he'll have to abstain. Any changes or questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And Brian as an abstention. Okay. Any other business? Yes.
Making a quick pitch for the Lamprey Arts and Culture Alliance. They are in desperate need of a treasurer, and I figured I might ask someone on the budget committee would be interested. Basically, they just need someone to go over their monthly books, and this is the committee that works out of the mill space. They're in charge of the events there. They basically have been trying to share the job of doing like taxes and adding up budget and expenses. It's open to not just Newmarket residents, but anyone can be in this position. So if you or anyone watching knows of someone with a finance background who likes the arts and wants to help out a local community, please contact the Lamprey Arts and Cultural Alliance, our mill space.
Is there a particular person?
Yeah, best would probably be John Herman.
And just so everyone knows, I did have the opportunity to speak with both Steve and the superintendent of the school. We are on an every other month situation, so our next meeting will be discussing school financials. I know Janet is ready. I've already spoken with her, so she'll be ready to meet with us. I think it's, what is it, June 23rd maybe, I think is our next meeting.
Are we gonna continue to follow the same format? The Monday, was it the last Monday?
Yes.
So it would either be 20 or 27?
27th, that was it, that was the date. Next meeting will be the 27th. And we'll be off in July, as we had discussed previously. So in the meantime, if there's any specific questions, I believe I do have, I'm not sure if I sent it out to everyone on the board yet, the latest financials from the school. If I haven't, I'll shoot that out to you this week. But once again, if you have any questions, just shoot me an email and I'll send it out to whoever happens to be the person in charge at the time.
So for August, we do the 22nd or the 29th?
Probably the 29th. I would go with the 29th if everybody's good with that.
Is that Labor Day weekend?
Yeah, the Monday before.
Yeah, that's
Like, so Labor Day will be like September. what,
Labor Day is
Sixth.
the 5th.
Labor,
Yeah.
September
It's the
5th
week
is
before.
Labor Day.
It's the week before,
It'll
okay.
be the week before.
Yeah.
And then if I'm fortunate enough to get an idea of when the budgets are gonna be available, I can plug in those dates like we had last year, where we did end up having some additional meetings just to go over the budget. So anyone else have anything else?
Just one comment on what Steve mentioned about the illegal meetings, the quorums. I know we had email chains last year,
Mm-hmm.
and I know Joe did put on there, don't reply all, and, you know, and I've done it myself, so it's not a finger pointing contest as much as it's just to be careful,
Yeah.
because when you hit reply all, it becomes
Right.
an illegal meeting, so
Yeah.
we just gotta be cognizant of that.
And I try when I send out any information to say, just, please respond to just me if you have any
Right.
specific questions,
Yeah.
to make it a little bit easier and legal.
Yep. Yeah. So are we gonna be able to submit questions then on any of this information that he sent to us the other day for August? I mean,
Sure, I'm hoping that we
Couple
have,
months old at that point.
right, but I'm hoping that we'll also have more of an update, because I know initially Steve had said that we were gonna get quarterly reports, but when I spoke with him, he said he would try to give us the freshest stuff possible on the every other month scenario, so.
Good.
And hopefully I get that the beginning of the month, so I can send it out to everyone, give you a couple of weeks, give you a deadline to get back to me with any questions that you want me to forward, and hopefully give Steve or the school at least a week's worth of time to get us some answers.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else got anything? I guess I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I so moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.